Hi everybody, me again. Just thought I'd jump on quickly before I have to go and get the kids from school, sort dinner, and then pop out and see my mum for her birthday. So, just a quickie, day 3 on the Free Yourself from Your Free Feedback Fears. Going quite well so far, lots of information. Hope everybody's finding it useful. Please drop me a comment, let me know how it's going, let me know if there's anything you need me to go back over, if you need me to repeat anything or anything that you just feel is relevant. Obviously we're at day 3 now, so I don't want to get to the end of the week and then you're kind of worried that you haven't caught up or you haven't been able to understand something, which means that the next parts aren't making sense. So feel free to drop me a comment, either PM me or drop me a comment here or on the post of the salad earlier, and I can help you out. So, when to take feedback seriously? Now, this is a really short one, unlike yesterday's, which was quite a big discussion point. This one is a lot smaller. So, basically, there are a small number of times when feedback needs to be taken seriously, and usually when it's given by an authoritative figure. So if you're given feedback, if you're in a sales environment and it's feedback about, like I was saying yesterday, somebody doesn't like your product, that's just basic feedback you can ignore. If, however, that feedback has created injury or has created someone to be seriously ill, that's very different. So say, for instance, you are a dietitian and you've told somebody that you've created some recipes and things like that, and those recipes are sold as being gluten-free, and you've given out all the details that you need and you've sold it on to people, and then somebody contacts you to say, well, actually I'm gluten intolerant, I'm a celiac, and I've done your recipe and I've been really ill from it. So that's a little bit different. Hi Claire, how are you? Because now we're not just talking about somebody not liking your product or not liking what you've offered or deciding that actually it's not for them. Actually, they've had an issue because of it. There's been a problem because of it. They've become ill because of it. And that's when you need to look at it properly. You need to then go back into your recipes, find out what was maybe causing the problem, look at whether or not you've given the right information, that kind of thing. Another way might be if you're given feedback from the police. So let's say, for instance, you're pulled over and their feedback is that you're driving too fast. It would be quite useful to listen to that feedback and to then drive at a relatively different speed. So especially whilst they're still watching anyway. So again, that kind of feedback, because if you don't take the feedback on board, there is a consequence. So if you don't take on the feedback and you continue to sell your recipes to more people who are celiac and more people get poorly, then you could end up being investigated. You could end up being in a lot of trouble where people then stop buying from you completely. There is a consequence to you not taking that feedback on board. If you are pulled over by the police and you're given some feedback on your driving ability and you don't take that feedback on board, then guess what? There is a consequence to that. You can end up being fined. You can end up with points on your licence. Hi Jim, how are you? So again, with that kind of thing, there is quite some serious consequence to you not listening to the feedback. Another one would be if you're in a review meeting. So think about review meetings not just in the workplace but medically as well. So you could have a one-to-one with your manager, it could be a performance review, it could be a yearly review, it could be a medical review, it could be an interview review. So there's lots of different ones it might be. And generally, if you're in that kind of environment and you're having a review from that, they are expecting you to take the feedback on board. So if you were to go for an interview and the feedback that you were given was that you were great and you were really good, you came across really well, hi Emma, you were perfect for the job, but somebody else that they'd interviewed had slightly more experience from a voluntary point of view. They'd done more voluntary work than you have. So their feedback to you would be, get some more voluntary work under your belt, and then next time a job comes up, come back and see us. If you then reapply for the job and you're given another interview and you go along and you haven't taken on that feedback and you haven't done any voluntary work since then, they're not going to give you the job. They're not going to take it any further because they gave you some feedback and you clearly ignored it. So, they're not going to take it any further. They're not going to want somebody like that to employ, or someone who is going to not listen to what they're advising. So that's another time when you need to look at it. Medically, if you go for a medical review, so you go and see your doctor, you're over 50s kind of thing, or you're over 40s, or whatever it might be, and your doctor is saying to you, right, actually your levels are okay at the moment in your cholesterol, however I would advise you to start considering what you're eating, start reducing it before it becomes something you need to worry about. So what your feedback is that although your cholesterol levels are high-ish or okay-ish, you're at risk of developing it further. If you ignore that feedback and you continue to eat exactly how you always have, and then you go back to see your GP in a few months' time and you have another blood test, and guess what, your cholesterol levels are really high again, then there's no support there, is there? That you can't be kind of cuddled and, bless you, poor you. You were told, you chose to ignore it, and now the consequence is you now have this issue you need to deal with. So if you are diabetic and you are told that your diet isn't working and the medication that you're taking isn't working, and they want you to try a different medication and they want you to try a different diet plan, and you ignore them and you continue doing what you're doing, then guess what? Your levels aren't going to change. So that's again when it's really important for you to kind of take feedback on board and make sure that you are doing what you're being asked. If it's a work review, so say in a one-to-one you're being told that actually you've only been with the company a few months and you're not performing, and if you don't start performing they're not going to give you a full-time contract. If you then don't start finding out what you're doing wrong and start increasing your performance, then guess what's going to happen at the end of that 3 months? They're not going to keep you on, they're going to let you go. The same as if you're taking a end of year appraisal and your manager is saying to you that you need to increase your performance, or you need to start working in a different area because your scores aren't right, or your sales figures aren't working out, anything like that, any of your targets that you're given, if they're not being met by you, you will have a one-to-one, or you'll have a conversation with your manager where they're giving you a little bit of feedback to say, look, guess what? At the minute you're not performing very well. You need to do these things to make your performance improve. If you choose to ignore that, in a month's time or in 3 months' time, when you're then on a formal performance review, because you haven't listened to that feedback, you've got no one to blame but yourself. You were clearly told by your manager at that point beforehand that you needed to start arriving on time for work, stop taking long lunches, start getting your figures up, start getting your sales reviews in on time, get your reports done on time, whatever it might have been. And you didn't do it. You didn't learn how to do things better. You didn't sit with somebody who's meeting their targets and find out what you could be doing differently. You didn't go to your manager and go, look, okay, I've had this feedback that I'm not performing very well, that worries me, what can I do to increase my performance, and get some help from them. You took the feedback, you kind of ignored it, and you carried on with your working day. That's fine, but don't expect anything to change. So when you have your next review, and you're then going, your managers are saying, actually it's no longer a little bit of good feedback where we're just sort of saying to you, just look out for it. We're now saying we're going to take this to the next step and it's going to be a formal procedure. You'll now find that you could end up losing out on a bonus, because quite often with companies, if you're on a performance review, you don't get your bonuses. If you're on a performance review, you're not allowed to do overtime. You're not allowed to go for promotions. It can hinder a lot of things. So even if you're very new to the company and you're thinking to yourself right now, actually there isn't anything else I'd rather do anyway, and I don't want to work overtime, I like my Saturdays to myself and things like that, that's fine right now, but you don't know what might change in the future. You don't know when something might come up that you want to do. And because you've ignored the feedback you've given before, you now can't do it. So you're losing out. There's a consequence to it. So that's really what I wanted to just kind of raise with you quickly today, is that It's great to ignore feedback if, like yesterday we were saying about it being irrelevant, but if you're in a position where actually that feedback is really important and not taking that feedback has a consequence to it at the end of it, then you need to start listening to it. And the best thing for you to do is to get your manager or whoever the feedback is coming from to clarify the details, give you some evidence, give you some more information, make sure you really understand the feedback properly, you really understand what it is you need to do, and then start implementing the changes. Make sure you then start putting in practice some actions from the feedback you've been given, and only then can you sit in your next review meetings and say, I did everything that I was told, I've tried really hard, and this is now the improvement I've made. You can then clear yourself of that past feedback, you can move on from it. It's no longer got to be something you need to carry around with you. You're no longer not performing, you're no longer got high cholesterol, you're no longer hurting people with recipes that are not actually gluten-free, any of that kind of stuff, because you've taken on the feedback, you've learned from your mistakes, and you're moving forward with it, and that's really, really important. So your challenge for today is just a little bit of life experience sharing, really, nothing too difficult. I've been quite mean over the last couple of days with the things I'm making you do. So today is just about helping each other out. So what I'd like you to do, either comment here or comment on the salad that I've posted earlier, your day 3 post. Just something where in the past you've ignored feedback, and because of you ignoring it, there has been a consequence to it. There's something has happened that you should have listened to. So for me, a long time ago, I hurt my shoulder and I was told to rest it, and I didn't. And I kept doing more and more things with it, and it was about 5 years ago I had a frozen shoulder and I was told I needed to rest it, and I didn't, and I kept trying to use it and I kept trying to push myself. I was given some physio exercises and I refused to only do the 5, I wanted to do 10, and it took me a lot longer to get to the point where I started to heal. So where I thought by doing more exercises and keeping it moving more and more I would heal quicker, I actually took longer to heal, and I ended up having to have a procedure on the shoulder itself where I ended up being in hospital and being operated on, and it wasn't particularly nice. So my lesson learnt when I hurt my shoulder again was to listen to the doctor, listen to the physio, because guess what, they're trained, they know what they're talking about, they know more about it than I do. So when my physio said just do 5 stretches, just do 10 stretches, that's all I did. I did as I was told, and I healed much faster and much better. A couple of years later, when I fractured my shoulder, did exactly the same again. I listened to what I was told, I did as I was told, I rested when I was supposed to, I kept to exercise when I was supposed to, and exactly the same with my shoulder problem I've got at the moment. I had my injection yesterday, I was told to rest it last night and keep it light today. I'm not allowed to do any physio for a week, so do you know what? I haven't done my physio. Previously, I would have been doing a little bit of it today, maybe just 1 or 2, just, trying to mess around with it. I haven't. I've kept it rested today, haven't done loads, haven't overstretched it, and the pain in it has reduced. So the consequence is I'm actually learning and I'm doing the right things now, which is what's really important. So exactly the same for you. Share some ideas with me, share some things with everybody else, share your experiences. What have you learned by actually wishing you'd listened to some feedback you were given? Have a lovely day, and I will speak to you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye.